Yes, hello. I'm Dr. Stephen Greer, and I'm founder of the Disclosure Project, and this is a special announcement about a new campaign we are launching this week, and that is to end permanently the secrecy around UFOs and free energy devices. All of you are familiar with the work we did with Sirius, which became the top pick on Netflix in the past year. And I'd like to thank all of you for supporting that project. This project and the Disclosure Project, launched in 2001 at the National Press Club, are really focusing purely on top secret, unacknowledged special access projects that deal with the UFO, extraterrestrial, and free energy or zero-point energy fields. And what we're doing with this campaign is not just advocating for the government to do something. This is the campaign that will actually end the illegal secrecy. And what's key about the words here is that we are doing this, not the government. And I think you have to understand that the people are the government in a democracy. And our government has completely failed us on this and many other issues and is dysfunctional and corrupt. Therefore, it's incumbent on us, the people of the world, not just the United States, to come together to support this endeavor. We are now working with people from all over the world who have access to archives dealing with the UFO subject, government top secret witnesses, videos, photographs, and other material. And we are asking you, the public, to support this campaign. And you can go to our website, SiriusDisclosure.com, to support it in a number of ways. But one of the chief distinctions I want to make between this and other disclosure efforts that are going on is that this is not an effort to ask anyone else to do it. This is a campaign where we, the people, actually do it. And we are therefore calling this the campaign that actually ends the illegal secrecy. Illegal is a key word here, and I want all the military, corporate, intelligence officials, government officials who know about the operations that deal with UFOs, advanced technologies such as zero-point anti-gravity, gravity control, and related subjects, that those projects, even though you may not be aware of it because you are in a compartment away from most of the other leadership of the organizations that manage them, are being run illegally. I will get more into this in a moment. What the public needs to understand is that the future of our civilization, not only in how we live on this planet and whether we have an environment and an biosphere, an ecosystem to live in will be here, but also how we're going to live into the future and what our relationship will be with these interstellar civilizations is hanging in the balance. And so this isn't something that we can expect the next president or the next Congress or the next Parliament in England or whoever to deal with. Personally, I have been involved at that level since 1992, whether it be top generals at the Pentagon, the Clinton administration, the CIA director for President Clinton, etc. And what I have seen is that there is enormous interest in those corridors, but for the most part, they don't have access to these unacknowledged special access projects. Keyword, USAP. And since they don't, there's only so much that they can do. And so what we are doing is what perhaps they are either afraid to do, don't have the courage to do, perhaps get threatened when they try, or simply feel that it's too big for them to take on. One senator said to us, what you're asking me to do is to reel in a 2,000-pound whale, and I have a 5-pound line. I can't do it. So ultimately what I think we have to realize is that this is exactly the situation that Thomas Jefferson and others spoke of, that periodically the people have to come together and make these changes ourselves and not be passive and sheep-like waiting for the government to do it. And it's for this reason that over the 26 years I've been involved with this, this is by far the largest campaign I've been involved with. And we're going to need your help, every one of you, whether you can contribute $1 or $100,000 whether you can help network this to people on your Facebook page, on your social media, Twitter, whether you can help be a scout for us to find new top secret whistleblowers who are in these programs and who don't know that they're being managed illegally. It may be a father, it may be an uncle, it may be a husband or wife or a friend or a neighbor. They are out there. And what we are calling for is for everyone to come together and support this campaign. This campaign, initially, over the next 6 to 8 months, has 3 components. A full-length feature documentary film. So Sirius sort of introduced the scope of our work to the public. This is going to drill down in a granular way on these top secret illegal projects, the technologies that they are hiding, where they are, who's doing it, and how they're managed. And we will prove in this film that they are being managed illegally. What the purpose of that is that this film needs to be seen by hundreds of millions, if not 1 billion or 2 people around the world. And so we have put together a team commensurate with that task. But to fund this, right now we have no funding. To fund this, we're going to need the people to support it. And you can go to our crowdfunding page and see what our budget is, and also see that that is sort of the minimal budget. In addition to this full-length feature film, we're going to have a book that is a compendium to the film that will, of course, be able to have even more detailed information in it. World-renowned author Steve Alton, who's a New York Times best-selling author, also has a publishing company. And his publishing company and I have joined to put out this book that will be the definitive collection of evidence and information that anyone wanting the proof on this subject would be able to pick up and read. And it will be distributed in the mainstream distribution system for books. So that is also part of the crowdfunding campaign, is the production for that new book. And then the third component, which is being studied, I can't say that we have all the elements in place, but we have many of the elements in place, is a global concert and announcement event for the film, the book, and most importantly, for these new energy technologies. Now here I want to make a comment, and this is something incredibly important. Over the last month, I have met a number of people who have committed to not only putting on this concert event, but who also have access to some of the most renowned musicians, celebrities in the world. We hope we can organize this in the next few months, with both the film and the book, but also a featured technology will be on the stage. Now this is something we are still running to ground. I do not want people to think we have it secured yet, but we're on very close to the acquisition of one or more of these systems, even if they are prototypes. And when I refer to these devices and technologies, I'm talking about a closed-loop free energy device, something that runs itself, the input is charged from the output, and it is running and powering things, putting out usable kilowattage of power, or wattage. We know these have existed for over 100 years, since the time of Tesla and before, and they have always been suppressed. We now know that there is a support team behind us who have the financial ability to make any reasonable offer to anyone in the world with such a device so that their needs can be taken care of financially, and we can open source this to the world. Let me be very clear on what I'm saying. We have the team in place to provide any means of support that is reasonable to any inventor or technology holder with such a zero-point or free energy device, even something like LENR, the low energy nuclear reaction, cold fusion systems, zero-point quantum vacuum. We have these folks on board this project at this time, and they are committed fully to open sourcing this. Our agreement is explicit that the people who will work with us on this and are working with us have agreed to support the scientists, the inventors, and the technology holders in any way they need to, financially. And strategically, my team will launch this technology and put it out to the public free of cost. The plans, all the intellectual property will be open source, no patenting, and no secrets, so that the world can quickly adopt the technology and pull us out of the precipice, away from the precipice that we are plunging down. And that is a biosphere collapse due to our use of fossil fuels and nuclear power and the increasing have and have not impoverishment of the world that is necessary, unfortunately, when you're using fossil fuel systems and central utilities. Half the world's population is in enormous poverty, and this is an artificial result of the energy system and the basic infrastructure our civilization is using. So as an act of compassion to our fellow humans, we know that this needs to be moved in a way that doesn't fall into all the pre-existing traps dealing with technology seizures, national security orders, patent seizures, corporate buyouts of technologies that then put them on a black shelf. All of that has to be overcome, and the only way to do it is to get these technologies, have them independently reproduced and proven, and then massively, and I mean massively, disclosed. So our goal is that this concert and technology announcement event would be a global celebration of us starting a new chapter in human civilization on Earth. A civilization that can endure for hundreds of thousands of years without destroying the biosphere and is worthy of going into space peacefully and is capable then of having a just society, so we find a way to make peace on this planet. This is really the scope of the project. And over, I would say, the 26 years that I've been involved with this, I have never seen the sort of support and significant people who now get it. And I think this has reached a critical mass of consciousness where the people who understand the problems that we're in this planet now are really on board. And these are really substantial groups of folks, not just in the United States, but in the Middle East, Europe, Asia, India, throughout the world. Now, I've been carefully building this network for 25 years. And it is my hope that this is now going to be the fruition of those endeavors. But we really can't do it alone. We not only need your financial support for this campaign that ends illegal secrecy, we need your networking support. Because the reason we survived the launch of the Disclosure Project is that there were millions of people watching. Anyone who tries to do something like this in obscurity, I was told in 1991 by a national security attorney, they are all dead men walking. However, if we come together in unity to do this together and bring millions of people, billions if we can, onto the platform, we can launch this technology and launch this information in a way that simply cannot be stopped. I was just looking through this, which is the briefing packet that was done, put together for President Obama, that was provided to John Podesta, who has talked so much about how he regrets, as in his long years in government, not being able to effect UFO disclosure. And as you know, Hillary Clinton and others have been talking about this on Jimmy Kimmel and others. What I'm quite sure of is that their inability to do anything about it is because of this nature and the structure of illegal secrecy. So that's what we have to do. We have to do this because the system here in Washington, and by the way, I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C., and looking right now at the Washington Monument and the White House. This is something for us, we the people, to do. And I think that if we wait for the government to do it, we'll all be dead. I'll be 100 years old before it'll happen. And I think if the people lead, however, the leaders will then follow. So we have to be the leadership effort. And that's what every person listening to this has to understand. I want to empower each of you to view yourselves as citizens of the earth, but also citizens of the cosmos. And that it is our charge, it is our challenge, it's our task to begin a new civilization on this planet that can go forward into space in peace and using free energy and have a just civilization on Earth where we eliminate once and for all environmental destruction and punishing poverty, which is now so prevalent around the world. Only then are we worthy to be welcomed into the neighborhood of interplanetary and interstellar civilizations. So this is the great challenge of our time. And you cannot have peace in this world when you're living in a system that is so unjust that it guarantees half the world is in horrible poverty. And for those of us who aren't in horrible poverty, our very existence is cannibalizing Mother Earth and destroying her. This is no way for a people to live. So it's our time to do the right thing. This is the time. There's no generation to pass this on to. 100 years ago, there were cans kicked down the road. 50 years ago, on the UFO and ET issue, cans were kicked down the road. This is 2016. We don't have another 100 years. Neither the geopolitical situation nor the environmental situation can withstand another 100 years of inaction, passivity, and cowardice. So we have to find the courage to do this somehow. And I think if we all work together, we can do it. It's nothing I can do by myself. It's nothing any one person can do. But if we all come together and do it, it absolutely can be done. And it can be done very quickly. And what I've been feeling, what I've been sensing, the elements are all coming together very quickly. There has been a building like this, and now it's gone straight up in terms of the people, institutions, what have you, that are involved in the project we've been working on for 25 years. And I'm hopeful, incredibly hopeful, that this can be done over the next coming months and couple of years. So we're not talking about an event, 20 years down the road. We're talking about an event in the coming months and year or two. And I hope that all of you will join us. You'll help us with the crowdfunding at the site that's on the screen. I hope you can help us with finding the evidence and witnesses, and that you'll keep what we're doing in your thoughts and prayers as we start on this enormous undertaking, and doing this as we think about our children and our grandchildren and those who come to this planet after us. I always say that we really are starting a civilizational change that's a once in every few thousand year change. And that there are thousands of generations in that great waiting room in the cosmic sky, waiting to come to Earth and waiting for us to get it right. Thank you. We have many people in our network who worked in unacknowledged special access projects. Now, this is very different from a special access project or special access personnel. It was reported in the media about Hillary Clinton having access to SAP. Well, of course, many people do. A special access project is simply a compartmentalized project within the intelligence system. And there are only 3 levels of classification: confidential, secret, and top secret. It's the compartment that you're in that is key. Now, Edward Snowden, he disclosed something called PRISM, among other things. PRISM was a special access project, but it was acknowledged. The president knew about it, the Congress knew about it, the key members of the intelligence committees. We're talking about unacknowledged special access projects that are funded to the tune of $100 to $200 billion a year that are illegal because they will not tell anyone that is not in that compartment what they're doing. And I have a number of people who worked in these projects. And for example, one Navy gentleman was in one project that was between $2 and $3 billion, one unacknowledged special access project compartment. These projects are exactly the fulfillment of what Eisenhower warned us about when he said, beware of the military-industrial complex. And so it's for this reason that I want people to understand that what we're exposing are not all secrets within the U.S. government or all secrets within the British government. We're only exposing, and this is going to be the greatest expose in history on this, projects that are unacknowledged and are being run illegally. I want to make this distinction very clearly so that people do not get confused. There's a lot of confusion on this in the public. And we stay on very safe ground when we are exposing projects that are being run illegally. Because let's face it, if the President of the United States or the CIA director or these senior fellows at the Pentagon, generals and admirals I've met with, and Ministry of Defense head in the United Kingdom, are being denied access and lied to about projects going on under their own command, but that are unacknowledged special access projects, that is by definition unconstitutional and illegal. It violates all oversight requirements of the Constitution and of the National Security Act. So we want to be really clear that those are the projects that we are going to bring forward and let people know about. And the reason these projects have such extreme secrecy around them is because the implications are so vast. When I started this project, Starlight Initiative, which I was helping Lawrence Rockefeller, and he and I were in the early days in 1993 and 4 collaborating on this. I was at his ranch out in the Tetons, and the JY Ranch, which had been the Rockefeller Ranch out there. And he took me out one night out onto the deck and he said, "You know, Dr. Greer, the implications of this disclosure are so vast and so profound that no aspect of life on Earth will be unaffected." And I turned to Mr. Rockefeller and I said, "Yes, sir, that's why they're unacknowledged. That's why they're so secret. That is precisely the problem. If this were a trivial issue, it would have leaked out in the New York Times decades ago. It's because the implications are so profound. But these implications and the secrecy has become a threat to all life on Earth. The first head of the CIA, who after he retired, Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, said in a letter that I have that the secrecy around UFOs is a threat to the national security. The UFOs are not a threat. He did not say that. The secrecy is a threat. And so it's not only a threat to the national security of the United States and other countries, it is now, and that was in 1961, it is now 50 some years later, has become an existential threat to all life on Earth because we are now destroying the biosphere and also creating a geopolitical time bomb where there's so much poverty and disparity of income that it can go in only one direction, and that is violent global revolution, unless we fix it. And so that's why this issue is so important. It is not a trivial issue. We are looking for people who are new whistleblowers. And let me give you a little bit about what we need. We are not interested, first of all, in second and third-hand sources, unless the second or third-hand source has documents or material from a secret lab, government or corporate, that would be dispositive. Then we want that. But as far as whistleblowers themselves, witnesses, we want them people who are firsthand. They need to be able to corroborate to the extent possible who they are and where they saw what they saw. We are not interested in anonymous sources. On background, perhaps, but for the purpose of disclosure, an anonymous source is of nominal value. I have 600 anonymous sources I'm working with already. But they won't go on the record. We need people with the courage to go on the record. And I want to talk about not just the courage, but the genuine sense of patriotism. And now this word gets overused, and I'm now talking not just of nationalistic patriotism, but patriotism as a human being for their fellow humans. But even if you're talking about patriotism in your country, it is not patriotic at all to sit on secrets that are being kept away from the President of the United States or the Congress, the people's representative, when we supposedly live in a democracy and a free society. That is not patriotism. That is going along with a fascist, authoritarian, illegal operation. I want to be very clear on that. Therefore, the people who come forward are not at all violating their national security oaths, morally or legally. Now, what do I mean by that? Very quickly, and I did an entire 4-hour workshop on this that you can see on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/sdisclosure. This brings up this question of how did we get the first 100 or so of the military and intelligence witnesses to come forward 15 years ago this year, in fact, May 9th, 2001. Because from 1992 until 1998, I went throughout the U.S. government and other governments and proved that key people in the CIA, the director, for example, of the CIA, the president, key people at the Pentagon, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the head of intelligence for the Joint Staff, the head of the Ministry of Defense in Great Britain, on and on. And this was not through conspiracy theory. This was me meeting with these folks and learning that they had personally been denied access to these projects. Therefore, those projects are unconstitutional and illegal. They're rogue. So since they have chosen to opt out of the legal and constitutional system, all national security oaths and agreements, whether it's with a corporation or an agency such as the CIA or National Security Agency, NSA, or the Pentagon or any division of the Pentagon or any other government agency, are null and void. This assessment was sent to the heads of every agency in the United States government in late 1997. And we will show you this document. And it went return, receipt, requested. In other words, we have proof that it was received. And the way this was done is in the military, there's something called unless otherwise directed, UNOD. You know, military guys, just like medical guys like myself, love acronyms. But UNOD means unless otherwise directed. So the way this letter was formatted under the advice of a very experienced military analyst was that we sent this assessment that I have just shared to the key agencies in the United States government and said that unless otherwise directed, we are going to assume that this assessment is correct, the projects are illegal, and all personnel, documents, and materiel, meaning extraterrestrial or free energy devices, biological samples of extraterrestrial life forms, are liberated. They're free to be disclosed because the projects that are managing this endeavor are themselves illegal enterprises that are unconstitutional. From 1997 until now, which is April 2016, 19 years almost, there has not been a single agency or person, privately or publicly, to contradict that assessment. And therefore, all of you who are listening, who work at Pahut Mesa, so-called Area 51, Dugway Proving Grounds, Edwards Air Force Base, Lockheed Skunk Works in the Cube, Pine Gap facility in Australia, etc. and so on, you are not required to go along with any secrecy oaths that you have signed. I am asking all of you to contact me at witnesses@seriousdisclosure.com. We'll put that up on the screen. Witnesses@seriousdisclosure.com. And you will be handled with the utmost confidentiality and professionalism. If you have documents or material, those can also be handed over. So those of you who are witnesses to UFO research projects, zero-point energy, gravity control projects, ET technology transfer operations, and so forth, I'd ask for you to contact us as soon as possible. And I also would ask that those of you who have knowledge of the counterintelligence programs that have staged illegal mutilation and abduction projects also contact us. And those of you with knowledge of SDI, the Strategic Defense Initiative, which has been piggybacking within it a operation to target extraterrestrial vehicles as they approach Earth or around the Earth. In addition, civilian victims, firsthand, who have clear memory or evidence, video or otherwise, of having been abducted or been witness to paramilitary human involvement in military abductions and mutilations that are staged to appear as extraterrestrial, please contact us immediately. Now, those of you with such a claim will need to be able to have some sort of corroboration to prove it, unless there's incredibly strong other corroborating witnesses to it. But we know that this is going on. We know that many of the people who have been victims of these operations have been, in a sense, cannon fodder on a psychological warfare campaign to prepare the public for a false or cosmic flag operation. A false flag operation, it basically is when covert military or intelligence operations stage something when there's no evidence for it in order to manipulate the masses. I mean, this is exactly how we got into the Iraq War, with evidence that didn't exist. The Gulf of Tonkin in Vietnam was an exaggeration, if not a complete falsification of an attack on our ships in Vietnam to stampede the Congress into funding that disastrous endeavor. And we know from sources inside the covert, unacknowledged special access projects that these plans are in place to hoax a threat from outer space. Those of you who know of the plans or who have been involved in the tactical operations dealing with this hoaxing need to contact us, as we wish also to expose those operations so that the public is not deceived again, or can be, or as the WHO said, we won't be fooled again into another disastrous conflict, which this time they were trying to create an interplanetary conflict. So we want people who, with knowledge of that from either in the civilian sector who have been victims of these events, or people who have been operationally involved, of whom I have interviewed about a dozen, but so far they have not been willing to go on camera. We need these folks to go on camera and with evidence, because this is very important. If not, we will not include it in the film. We have to have all of this nailed down to dispositive proof. So we're asking for cooperation on those areas. Also, people who may be in the civilian sector, who have inherited from family government documents, parts of UFO craft, if we know these exist, or other extraterrestrial artifacts or evidence, please contact us. People who are in current projects who have this sort of evidence also can contact us, or if you are retired. It was expressed to me last night by a CIA figure, very prominent, who's retired, that he's afraid that his retirement package benefits would be at risk. It is not at risk, because you are not going to be punished for exposing programs that have been run illegally, and we can prove in a court of law that they are illegal. And since we can prove this, what we have found with everyone who has come forward from the 1990s until now have been left alone. Every single man and woman who came forward and has come forward has been completely left alone. They have not been threatened, they have not lost pensions, they have not had any repercussions at all, because we did this unless otherwise directed strategy, and it has worked. So I would encourage you to find the courage to do the right thing and step forward on behalf of humanity, and certainly on behalf of the people of the United States, if you're in America, or the people of whatever country you are in. And believe me, these programs extend around the world. It's not just the United States. The question of technology. The technology we're looking for, we have a couple of that are in pursuit, close pursuit, are technologies that we know there are thousands of inventors and groups around the world over the years who have been victimized by new energy suppression. And the Federation of American Scientists in 2010 wrote a report on this, their national security project, that over 5,100 patents had been seized. Dr. Tom Vallone was witness to this when he was at the patent office, and we have his interview. However, most people, it never even gets to that. They're just working on something, covert programs, monitoring. As Ben Rich of Lockheed Skunk Works says, there are no private conversations anywhere on earth. They go in and they just seize it. Or it begins to emerge and it gets tied up in a legal or business entanglement. And usually the business that is doing this is a front for the intelligence community and or the cartels involving oil, fossil fuels, petrodollar, macroeconomic interests who want to keep this secret. So if you have been a victim of this, we want to hear from you. Just like if you have been a victim of a covert hoaxed abduction or mutilation event. If you have been a perpetrator working on behalf of the U.S. government or a corporation to acquire these technologies and keep them secret, we want you to come forward and tell your truth. And you will be protected as you do this. So that's another category of witnesses we want. Now, when we're talking about a system that's operational, we have a team of people. It's backed up out of Europe by thousands of engineers. And if you have a legitimate operational system or can build one up because you have done so in the past, very quickly, and by very quickly I mean within the next couple of months, we require the following. It must be able to be transparently tested and then from the plans independently reproduced and proven. We are not interested in secret black boxes at all. You must be willing to cooperate with a project of this technology being open sourced and provided to the world without patent or intellectual property limits. This does not mean, and this is the first time in my 26 years I can state this, listen very carefully, this does not mean that you will not be compensated. If you put your life's work in this, you will be compensated. And I'm not going to talk about numbers, it's not appropriate, but let's just say any reasonable amount can be provided to you. And then lastly, it has to be closed loop. What do I mean by closed loop? It has to be something that the input power that starts the technology, whether it's a battery or a capacitor system or whatever it is, has to be run from the output while the device is still carrying, running something in the real world with wattage power. A practical operating system. But it cannot be plugged into a wall. If it's plugged into a wall, it has to be unplugged. It has to have a power-up unit that stays charged. So it is a freestanding, continuously running, over unity, quote, free energy system. Now, free energy is actually the wrong term because you're actually pulling energy from this almost infinite or perhaps infinite field that Tesla described of whether it's 0 point or quantum vacuum. You can argue about what it is, and the same thing with LENR. But it has to be closed loop, it has to be transparently tested, and we must be able to independently reproduce it at our cost, not yours. And you must cooperate with it being massively disclosed. Our goal is that at least 1 billion people will learn about this system, whatever this system is. And I'm fairly confident that we can do this. Now the reason for that is that once hundreds of millions or a billion or two people know about it, doesn't matter if the mainstream media won't report it because they're lackeys of the agency, the intelligence community. Because with the social media and the internet, which was nowhere near as developed in 2001 as it is now, it will be out there. Moreover, we have identified a number of household name celebrities who are extremely interested in this and who could have their home or car running on such a system. There's no way to stop the public knowing about it at that point. Now, this strategy is a complete sort of an aikido, where you take the energy of secrecy, intellectual property, the sort of golem-like, my precious with the ring, and you just put it out to the public. And this completely frustrates all the traps that have been set by the corporate and intellectual property, patent, and intelligence community to seize and suppress these technologies. We have mapped out dozens of strategies that those who want to keep these technologies secret have used. And the strategy we have developed will frustrate all of them. But it requires a completely different thinking than what is normally done in Silicon Valley, for example, with intellectual property, where the new Apple iPhone is more secret than the National Security Agency's algorithms. It is taking completely the opposite approach, where it's fully disclosed massively the instant we prove it is legitimate. Now, that is key. We do not want to disclose something that is not legitimate. One last requirement. The technology must not have either extremely rare and therefore non-commercially viable materials in it, meaning that you can only make 10 of them in the world because we need 1 billion of them. And it cannot have hazardous materials in it or as a byproduct of its operation, including radioactive or other hazardous materials. So these are the criteria that we are looking for. So if you are listening and you know someone who may have this system, technology, or you yourself does, please contact us at energy, like E-N-E-R-G-Y, at SeriousDisclosure.com. That's energy at SeriousDisclosure.com. And we will get back to you as soon as we can. The question of retooling our industrial infrastructure is a very large one. I mean, really what we're talking about taking on here, and it should have happened 50 to 100 years ago, is a retooling of the entire operating system, if you want to look at it that way, of planet Earth, because it's all now based on our addiction to oil and gas and coal and nuclear power. That transition isn't going to be done by waving a magic wand. It's not going to happen overnight. I think it can be done in 15 to 20 years, which in terms of rollover. But remember, in terms of having a technology from its inception to its widespread application, today is much faster than it was 20 or 30 or 40 years ago with communication and the internet and all of that. Look at cell phones, look at computers. I mean, all of these things have a way. So we think that, getting these systems developed can happen fairly quickly. We have people on our team who can arrange to have a manufacturing facility from scratch stood up within a year. That could be running on these new energy systems themselves, so they're non-polluting, that could then be cranking these systems out by the hundreds of thousands or millions. Of course, there's going to have to be some really large funding support to move things into that level that quickly, but we know that can be done. But you first have to get to this robust demonstrator, and then there'll be the level of support to do that. I think the other thing to remember here, and this is something that we haven't touched on, is that, and it's implicit in this whole discussion, is that right now, our entire way of living on the planet is a very heavy footprint. It's a huge burden on the Earth. And the reason for it is because of the type of energy systems we have. I remember as a high school student being with Archibald MacLeish, and he was saying at that time, in the 70s, early 70s, that the technologies already existed to scrub all of our smokestacks and manufacturing to zero effluent, zero pollution. But it took so much energy to do that, And energy itself created so much pollution, was so costly, that you got to this point of diminishing return very quickly. But what happens when you have free energy, literally, because the energy is coming from the environmental magnetic flux field, and it's non-polluting energy, there's no pollution associated with these systems, well then all the manufacturing can be zero impact in terms of clean. There can be 100% recycling, because recycling is an energy intensive process. There can be desalination of water, which, I mean, there are pipelines for gasoline that run thousands of miles across continents, so even the desert shall bloom. You know, it's a quote, a biblical concept. There's no shortage of water on the earth, there's a shortage of potable, fresh water, but the oceans are 2/3 covering the earth. And so the air itself has enormous moisture in it, and there are people that we're working with who've developed very efficient systems for squeezing moisture out of the air to create potable water or irrigation water, but those take electricity. So, but if your electrical needs are met from these systems, suddenly you can visualize a planet completely transformed and liberated from the shackles of the economic slavery of the current energy and manufacturing system that requires more than 2/3 of the world living in poverty. Is that this isn't a pipe dream, this can absolutely be done. The critical thing that's been missing for decades is a big breakthrough. That's why I call it a breakthrough campaign that we're trying to do in the basic energy generation arena. And that's cost effective, and that puts out large amounts of energy and power that can be used for these purposes.